Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I do appreciate it while you're here. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck and, of course, with the Atlanta Braves. And as much as I wish I could focus on the Braves today, Major League Baseball still has a lockout. So for right now, there's just not a whole lot of things to talk about. But one thing we can talk about is the Baseball Hall of Fame. Of course, we will have some more content coming at you this week. Got some surprises for you, so stay tuned for that. But for right now, let's focus on the Baseball Hall of Fame because on January 25th, the 2022 results come out. Who's going to be in the Hall of Fame? We'll know on the 25th. That's not that far away, guys. So I thought it was a good time to start a conversation, tell you who I would put on a theoretical ballot. Maybe you can tell me who you would put on that ballot. So make sure you drop a comment down below. Tell me who you would like to see enter the Hall of Fame. Tell me who you wouldn't want to go in the Hall of Fame. And, of course, you can respond agreeing or disagreeing with myself. So without further ado, let's get started. The first choice I got for this year's Hall of Fame ballot is going to be Todd Helton. And Todd Helton is one of those guys who is gaining traction every year, but he's struggling to just get over the hump. And he's a 5-time All-Star. He's a 3-time Gold Glove Award winner, won the batting title, spent 17 years in Major League Baseball. He finished with over 2,500 hits, 369 homers. And you might be asking, Tyler, what's working against him, right? Those are all the good things. What's working against him? There's a couple of things when it comes to Todd Helton. One, I don't think it's necessarily helping him that he's on the same ballot with steroid users. And it's not Todd Helton's fault. Todd Helton played the game clean. What I mean is his 369 homers, while impressive, pale in comparison to the 500 and 600 homer guys like Gary Sheffield, Sammy Sosa, right? It makes Todd Helton look like he didn't do a whole lot. You add on to the fact that he also played his entire career at Coors Field. A lot of people immediately assume that that's the only reason he was ever any good. I don't view it that way. I think that's a ridiculous statement. And he can't help that he played his entire career in Colorado. I don't think he should be punished for playing his entire career in Colorado. How many times do we see that happen these days where a player plays his entire career with one team? Not very often. I don't think that should be punished. I think that should be appreciated. And sure, I'll give you this. His home and away splits do favor Coors Field in a major way. But does that make every Colorado Rocky ineligible for the Hall of Fame? I don't think so. I think that's ridiculous. Again, look, he's gaining traction every year. I hope he makes it in this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he did or didn't. But again, my first pick in the Baseball Hall of Fame this year, Todd Helton. I think he deserves it. With that said, my second vote is going to go to Billy Wagner. And this is a guy that I think most people would have assumed during his career would be a Hall of Famer one day. He's got elite stuff. 422 saves, 7-time All-Star. And to be honest with you, I plan to do a longer breakdown of him going on later this week because I really dug in deep to his situation because you start doing research on these guys and you realize, in terms of bullpen arms in particular, out of the 333 guys in the Hall of Fame, 8 of them are relievers. That's a little less than 3% of guys in the Hall of Fame are relievers. It's extremely hard for relievers to make it in the Hall of Fame. But if there's one guy on this ballot that's a reliever that belongs in the Hall of Fame, it's Billy Wagner. Mariano Rivera got unanimously voted in a couple of years ago. Billy Wagner deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. My next pick, I've talked a lot about, Andruw Jones. As a guy that covers the Braves, this one really bugs me. I've met Andruw. I've asked him about what it would mean to him to be in the Hall of Fame. I think he belongs there. I don't think there's any question of it, honestly. He's arguably the greatest defensive center fielder of all time. He rivals Willie Mays and others, but easily of his era. He had 10 straight Gold Gloves in center field. He's a 5-time All-Star. In 2005, he was second in MVP voting behind Albert Pujols in his prime. You throw 434 home runs on top of it, I don't know how you keep him out of the Hall of Fame. I really don't. I think this might be his year, honestly. He's another one of those guys that's gaining traction. So let's hear Andrew's comments on the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, I'm not going to say anything lightly about it if I don't, it won't be a big honor to make it up to the, National League Hall of Fame. But, it's so much stuff go behind it, so it's not my choice, it's not my decision. If it happened, it happened. It will be an honor, it'll be a privilege, it'll be a big accomplishment of a great career, a hard career, and ups and downs career and stuff like that. So it will be a big honor for me. I will be so grateful to be in it. But if it don't happen, I know what I left on the plate, and I know what I'm all about, and my teammates know how hard I play for them, how hard I play for the team. So that's all, man.
So the next guy, my number 4 pick, if he goes in, will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, David Ortiz. And it's no secret, I make no secret of it, David Ortiz is one of my favorite players of all time. He had one of the greatest final seasons of all time. He led the league, I believe, in doubles and RBIs, which I don't know how it's possible, but he managed to do it. But he's also had a great career. He's one of the greatest designated hitters of all time. And with the recent inductions of Edgar Martinez, Harold Baines, I think the trend of designated hitters is starting to come around, and I think they're obviously being led into the Hall of Fame. That was the one thing that I was worried about when David Ortiz retired. But since then, again, Edgar Martinez has gone in, and of course Harold Baines has gone in as well. I don't think there's any reason to keep David Ortiz out of the Hall of Fame. I really don't. 541 homers, a 3-time World Series champ, World Series MVP, ALCS MVP, 10-time All-Star, and a home run derby champ on top of it. Not to mention, again, he had one of the most impactful final seasons ever. A lot of people didn't want him to retire. I was one of those, but what a way to go out, right? So that's where we have to bring in the negatives. And the biggest one is the supposed steroid use of David Ortiz. I will say this. When it comes to David Ortiz specifically, one, it's never been confirmed. He denied it all the way up till he retired. Hasn't really spoken on it in recent years, but he denies it to this day as far as I know. I've done pretty much a lot of research to find any kind of recent comment, nothing. I think David Ortiz is a Hall of Famer because let's say in 2003 it did happen. He's had a very long career after that. He's proven his worth. And to be honest with you, there's been nothing proven. There's already others that have been suspected of it in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think anything's going to keep him out of the Hall. I really don't. And I would be surprised if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, to tell you the truth. But with that, my next choice, this is going to raise some feathers. My next choice is Barry Bonds. And I know this is going to start a frenzy. It always does. Before we go any further, I think I need to explain my stance on steroid use, players that without a doubt used that could go into the Hall of Fame. I think I need to explain that. Do I love it? I don't even like it at all. I hate the fact that steroids were a part of baseball. I do. Looking back on those years, they were some fun years, but I hate the legacy that has been carried on with steroids. I really do. However, in the case of Barry Bonds, arguably, probably most would argue, he's the greatest hitter of all time. He was a Hall of Famer before steroids were a question. At least in the modern era, the greatest hitter in recent memory. And I don't think he'll ever be topped. A 7-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, 2-time batting title, 12-time Silver Slugger, and an 8-time Gold Glove. He is a video game player. I mean, it is ridiculous. It's not even a doubt that he'd be in the Hall of Fame, controversy aside. I also understand why people don't want him in. I completely understand it. I used to be one of you. I'm a Braves guy. To me, Hank Aaron is the home run king. So you can accuse me of thinking one way, but keep in mind, I used to think the other. There's been a few things that have swayed me. One, time goes on, people change. But two, mathematically, the steroid era has caused an issue with the Hall of Fame voting. It's caused a clog in the system. And if you remember the 2021 Hall of Fame ballot, no one got voted in. You can blame that on Curt Schilling, who frankly I think is a Hall of Famer, and I'll stick by that. But it's caused a clog in the system because you have, I'm just going to name them, Barry Bonds, Manny Ramirez, Sammy Sosa, A-Rod. I mean, you have a lot of guys now on the ballot that are steroid users that are taking votes away from other players. And if you haven't noticed, the ballot gets longer and longer every year. I mean, it's every year we're adding names and no one's going in, or very few are going in. And I don't think that's fair to guys like Todd Helton, Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, guys that are looking for those votes that are being taken away by Barry Bonds, Gary Sheffield, and others, other steroid users. So you can hate me for putting Bonds in, but my number 4 pick is going to be Barry Bonds, and I have no shame with that. There is a major problem though with the steroid situation, and I know some of you guys are wondering, well, Tyler, how do we fix that? You're not going to like the solution that I have, but I'm going to tell you. Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, Manny Ramirez, Gary Sheffield, and Alex Rodriguez are going to round out my list for the Hall of Fame this year. And I could go through all of them. I could tell you individually why they belong. I could tell you Roger Clemens has 7 Cy Young Awards. I could tell you Manny Ramirez and Gary Sheffield have 500 homers. Sammy Sosa has 600. A-Rod is one of the 4 guys that has 3,000 hits and 600 homers. I can tell you all that, but none of that matters. You know they're Hall of Famers just by numbers alone. You know that, but there's more behind the curtain. I can't convince you to morally appreciate what these guys have done on the baseball field. And for those of you dead set against this, let me ask you, how many of you, for you older crowd, I wasn't alive for this, to be honest with you, but how many of you were brought back into baseball because of the long ball summer and the steroid use, and you didn't know it, right? Baseball was fun back then. It's no secret. It financially saved baseball. And a lot of people that are currently in the Hall of Fame turned a blind eye to it. Bud Selig is number 1 on that list, and he's in the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But I've been to Cooperstown, and I've always said this. It is a museum that commemorates the sport, all aspects, all eras, the steroid era notwithstanding. And to be honest with you, I want as many people who are qualified and good enough as a player to be in the Hall of Fame as possible, within reason. And I believe if you let the steroid users in, we can progress in the sport, we can progress in Hall of Fame voting, and we can allow more players to get in, more of your childhood favorites, more of other people's childhood favorites, more of other people's favorite players in general. We can let more of these guys in that deserve to be in, because there's a lot of them that don't get in there. Fred McGriff is one of those people. There's been a lot of them. I think Rafael Palmeiro should be allowed in the Hall of Fame. I really do. And I think, honestly, if you don't think Barry Bonds is going to go in through the Veterans Committee, I think you're crazy. Because every player I've talked to and asked about Barry Bonds, they don't have a problem with him. They think he belongs. So I couldn't see him not getting voted in through that. So it's going to happen.
Man, I tell you, 2 guys that probably some of the best players, hitters I played with, and probably the best player I've ever seen play the game was with Barry.
Yeah.
I mean, whether he did steroids or not, before, after, or whatever, I personally can't. I don't know. I wasn't there. But that dude could hit. He was the most feared hitter in the game. I think best hitter all time ever. I played with him my last year when I think he was 40, and I mean, just lightning's hands, great eye.
I just think if it happened this way, it would help the game in a lot of ways. It would help the Baseball Writers Association in the Hall of Fame. If we could all unite for 1 year, get all the steroid users through, and then we could start on a clean slate. I think it would help a lot. Now with that, again, my ballot, Todd Helton, Billy Wagner, Andruw Jones, David Ortiz, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, Gary Sheffield, Manny Ramirez, and Sammy Sosa. Of course, this is just the start of the conversation. I will be glad to go back and forth with you in the comment section, so make sure you drop your comments. Tell me how wrong I am. Maybe tell me how right I am. I would appreciate it. But with that said, guys, join the conversation. I would appreciate it. And with that out of the way, I'll see you next time. I'll see you later this week right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.